Let's kick things off with Broadway Joe himself, Joe Namath. Now, before you Jets fans start throwing batteries at your screen, hear me out. Yes, the Super Bowl III guarantee was iconic. Yes, he legitimized the AFL-NFL merger. But those are storylines, not statistics. And the stats? They're uglier than a quarterback sneak on 4th and 15. Namath threw more interceptions than touchdowns, 220 picks to 173 touchdowns. His completion percentage was a measly 50.1%. His passer rating of 65.5 ranks 145th all-time, which is basically football's way of saying, congrats on showing up. The guy finished with a losing record as a starter at 62, 63, and 4. You know what that screams, game manager who got hot for one playoff run. But because he guaranteed a win in the biggest upset in football history and rocked a fur coat like he was auditioning for a mob movie, he gets a free pass to Canton. Broadway Joe had the charisma of a Hollywood star, but the career stats of a backup. The Hall of Fame is supposed to be about dominance, not drama. But wait, if you thought Namath's stats were rough, buckle up for Troy Aikman. 3 Super Bowl rings, 6 Pro Bowls, first ballot Hall of Famer. And yet, the dude never threw for more than 3,500 yards in a season. Never. He had exactly one season with more than 20 touchdowns. One. Meanwhile, Emmitt Smith was bulldozing defenses and Michael Irvin was making circus catches. And Troy's main job was to not screw it up. His touchdown-to-interception ratio was 165 to 141, which honestly looks more like a struggling rookie than a Hall of Fame legend. After 1996, his record was a pathetic 38 and 52. Aikman was the ultimate game manager, a guy who could execute the plays called for him, but couldn't carry a team on his back. Put him on the early 90s Cardinals instead of the Cowboys. And he's remembered as a journeyman who couldn't stay healthy. But because he got to hand the ball off to the greatest running back of his era while standing behind an offensive line that could have blocked a freight train, he's got a gold jacket. Aikman didn't dominate the NFL. He rode a dynasty to Canton. Now here's where it gets spicy, because Troy Aikman isn't even the most overrated quarterback in the Hall. That honor goes to Bob Grease. The man was part of the only perfect season in NFL history, which sounds impressive until you realize he missed 5 games that year, and Earl Morrall did most of the heavy lifting. Grease never averaged 2,500 passing yards in a season. His career passer rating doesn't crack the top 50 all-time. His completion percentage was 56.2, and he threw for a whopping 192 touchdowns in 14 seasons. For context, that's fewer touchdowns than Ryan Tannehill has thrown, and nobody's building a shrine for Tannehill. Grease's Hall of Fame case rests entirely on team success, specifically being the quarterback of a loaded Dolphins team with the best running game in football, and a defense that could shut down a church league. He was a solid player on a great team, and somehow that translated to football immortality. It's like giving an Oscar to the guy who held the boom mic during a Best Picture winner. Speaking of guys who benefited from all-time great teammates, let's talk about Lynn Swann. 4 Super Bowl rings, member of the Steelers dynasty, famous for those balletic highlight reel catches that get replayed every February, and absolutely, categorically not a Hall of Fame receiver. Swann's career stats are laughable compared to modern Hall of Fame standards. 336 receptions for 5,462 yards and 51 touchdowns over 9 seasons. He never caught more than 61 passes in a year. Never topped 1,000 receiving yards in a single season. Not once. His career high was 880 yards. There are slot receivers today putting up better numbers in their sleep. Swann made 3 Pro Bowls and 1 All-Pro team, which is solid, but nowhere near Hall of Fame territory. The only reason he's in Canton is because he had a few memorable Super Bowl moments and played for the most iconic dynasty of the 1970s. He was the 4th best player on his own offense, behind Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris, and John Stallworth. But he's the one with the bronze bust because he looked pretty doing it. If grace and style got you into the hall, ballet dancers would have their own wing. And since we're already throwing Steelers legends under the bus, let's keep that energy going with John Stallworth. Everything I just said about Swan, it applies to Stallworth too, except Stallworth was actually the better receiver and still doesn't deserve to be there. Slightly better career numbers, same lack of dominance, same benefiting from one of the greatest dynasties ever assembled. Stallworth had exactly one elite season in 1984, 80 catches, 1,395 yards, 11 touchdowns. And then a bunch of years where he was just a guy. 3 Pro Bowls, 1 All-Pro. That's not Hall of Fame. That's pretty good player on a stacked team. But because the Steelers won 4 Super Bowls and the voters got nostalgic about the Steel Curtain era, both Swan and Stallworth got golden jackets. It's the football equivalent of giving everyone on the winning team a trophy. But you want to know the most egregious running back in Canton? Paul Hornung, the so-called Golden Boy, who was golden only because he played for Notre Dame, and then the Packers during their dynasty years. Hornung finished his career with 3,711 rushing yards and a pathetic 3.9 yards per carry. For perspective, that's the kind of efficiency that gets running backs cut in today's NFL. He wasn't even the best back on his own team. Jim Taylor was significantly better, outgaining him and outperforming him at every turn. From 1960 to 1964, Taylor rushed for over 6,000 yards, while averaging nearly 5 yards per carry. Hornung was the sidekick, the Robin to Taylor's Batman. Except somehow Robin got into the Hall first. Hornung's case rests on his versatility and a couple of scoring titles, which sounds impressive until you realize he was kicking field goals and extra points to pad those numbers. He won the 1961 MVP, scored 176 points in 1960, and had a great highlight reel. But he also got suspended for gambling and was never the dominant force the Hall of Fame is supposed to celebrate. He's the Heisman Trophy winner who got by on name recognition and playing for Vince Lombardi. That's not greatness. That's being in the right place at the right time. Now let's talk defense, because it's not just the offensive guys who slipped through. Dan Hampton was a solid defensive tackle for the Bears, a 4-time Pro Bowler who played on one of the greatest defenses in NFL history. But Hall of Fame? Really? The man recorded 57 sacks over 12 seasons, which averages out to less than 5 per year. He was constantly injured, missing significant time throughout his career. And here's the kicker. He wasn't even the best player on his own defensive line. Richard Dent was the superstar, the guy who dominated in Super Bowl 20 and should have been the first inducted. But Hampton got in first, in 2002, while Dent had to wait until 2011. Why? Because Hampton played both tackle and end, which sounds versatile until you realize it just means he wasn't elite at either position. He was a good player on an all-time great defense, surrounded by Hall of Famers like Mike Singletary, Richard Dent, and Steve McMichael. Strip away those teammates and the legendary 46 defense scheme, and Hampton is just another guy. But because he had a catchy nickname and played in Chicago during the peak of Bears mania, he got immortalized. And while we're exposing defensive players, let's shine a light on Dick LeBeau. Now LeBeau is an absolute legend as a defensive coordinator. The man revolutionized NFL defenses with the zone blitz and deserves every bit of praise for his coaching career. But he's in the Hall as a player, not a coach. And as a player, 3 Pro Bowls in 14 seasons. That's it. No All-Pro selections, no game-changing moments. Just a solid, unspectacular career as a cornerback for the Lions. LeBeau's playing career was good, not great. He's in Canton because voters looked at his entire football legacy, playing and coaching combined, and decided he deserved it. Which is fine, except he's enshrined as a player, not a contributor. It's like giving someone an Oscar for Best Actor because they later became a legendary director. The categories exist for a reason. Here's a fun one. Jerome Bettis, the Bus, the big bruising back, who rumbled through defenses and piled up over 13,000 rushing yards. Sounds Hall of Fame worthy, right? Except dig into those numbers, and you'll find a career built on volume, not efficiency. Bettis averaged 3.9 yards per carry for his career, under 4 yards per carry. That's the kind of efficiency that gets modern running backs benched. He only had 4 1,000-yard seasons in his prime and spent the second half of his career as a short yardage plotter who got the ball 25 times a game, because that's what teams did in the 90s. Bettis wasn't making defenders miss. He wasn't breaking long runs. He was falling forward for 3 yards and doing it enough times to rack up impressive totals. He was a compiler, the football equivalent of a guitarist who just keeps playing the same 3 chords until you think it's a symphony. And sure, he was beloved in Pittsburgh and had a storybook Super Bowl win in his final game. But sentimentality isn't supposed to get you a bronze bust. The most controversial pick of all, the specialists. Ray Guy was the first pure punter inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2014, which sounds progressive until you ask yourself a simple question. Should specialists even be in Canton? Guy was an incredible punter, no doubt. He revolutionized the position, had a cannon leg, and was a weapon for the Raiders. But he played 6 snaps per game. 6. He didn't take hits. He didn't grind through injuries. He stood 15 yards behind the line and kicked a football. And somehow, that's equivalent to the careers of quarterbacks who took thousands of hits, running backs who sacrificed their bodies, and linemen who battled in the trenches for 70 snaps a game. It's not that Guy wasn't great at what he did. It's that what he did doesn't warrant Hall of Fame status. The same goes for Jan Stenerud, the first pure kicker inducted. Kickers and punters are important, but they're not Hall of Famers. If we're putting specialists in Canton, let's start inducting long snappers and water boys while we're at it.